Let me say something that might sting a little. Being nice to a narcissist isn't helping you, it's fueling them. You think your kindness will soften them, earn their respect, or keep the peace. But what you're really doing is giving them power. And listen, I'm not here to tell you to be mean. That's not what this is about. I'm here to show you something smarter. Because this isn't about being rude. It's about being effective. So today, we're going to talk about what it really takes to stand your ground. Calmly, confidently, and without apology. We're going to break down why your niceness has become their weapon and how to take your power back one quiet, intentional choice at a time. Let's start here, because this is where everything begins. You've got to recognize the power dynamic, that's the root, and if you miss this, everything else, boundaries, communication, protecting your peace, it all falls apart, because you're fighting a battle you don't even see. Now, when I say power dynamic, I'm not talking about someone physically overpowering you or shouting you down. No, it's subtler than that. It's the daily shift of control that happens in tiny moments. The way a narcissist rewrites a story, twists your words, or makes you feel like you owe them understanding for their behavior. They don't walk around with a sign that says, "I'm here to manipulate you." They walk around wearing charm, wearing confidence, wearing need. And because you're empathetic, kind, and giving, you don't see the game until you're deep in it. You just see someone who seems hurt or misunderstood. You think, if I can just love them right, maybe they'll change. But the truth is, they're not in a relationship with you. They're in a relationship with control. They want to be adored, obeyed, and rarely challenged. And your niceness, your constant peacemaking, your habit of softening your words so they won't get upset, that doesn't register to them as kindness. It registers as submission. Let that land. That's the power dynamic they want. They push and you bend. They accuse and you explain. They insult and you smooth things over. You're dancing to keep the peace. And they're watching you spin around thinking, I've got them exactly where I want them. This isn't about blame, it's about waking up. Because what looks like keeping things calm is actually reinforcing their position. The more you prioritize their comfort over your clarity, the more you hand over your power, one small act at a time. Until one day you look up and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And that's why being nice doesn't work. You're not dealing with someone who values mutual respect. You're dealing with someone who sees every relationship as a hierarchy, and in their mind, they're always supposed to be on top. So every time you go quiet to avoid their reaction, every time you apologize for something you didn't do, every time you say, it's fine, when it's absolutely not fine, you're reinforcing that dynamic. But here's the good news, you have a choice, and that choice starts with awareness. Ask yourself this, who's doing the most emotional labor in this relationship? Who's constantly managing reactions, adjusting tone, tiptoeing around triggers? If the answer is you're not in a partnership, you're in a performance, and your role has become keeping the narcissist comfortable, no matter the cost to yourself, that ends the moment you start seeing the dynamic clearly. Because awareness is power. You start pulling your energy back, not with rage, not with revenge, but with quiet awareness. You stop over-explaining. You stop tiptoeing. You stop offering emotional discounts to someone who pays with ego. You take a deep breath and you tell yourself, I'm not doing this anymore. Maybe not out loud at first, maybe just in your own mind. But the moment you say it, something shifts. You realize this isn't about being too sensitive. It's about someone engineering a world where they always win and you always shrink. Now, I want to prepare you for what happens next. The moment you stop playing your role, the narcissist reacts. They poke harder. They guilt trip. They call you selfish. Why? Because you're breaking the script. They built a system where they hold the power. And your resistance feels like rebellion. But that's your confirmation you're on the right path. Recognizing the power dynamic isn't just about naming it. It's about reclaiming your position. You're not here to be controlled, tolerated, or managed. You're here to live in clarity. And once you see the game, you don't play it the same. That's how you start pulling your power back, quietly, steadily, intentionally. And you don't apologize for it. Now, once you see that dynamic for what it is, once the lights come on, the next step is communication. And this is where a lot of people stumble. They think the opposite of nice is mean. But it's not. The opposite of nice is clear. See, most of us grew up believing that clarity is dangerous, that being direct makes you harsh, that setting limits makes you cold, so we sugarcoat, we soften. We add a cushion to every word hoping it lands gently. But let's be honest, how's that working out for you? How many times have you softened your message only to have it ignored, twisted, or used against you? Narcissists love vague language. They love people who tiptoe, who add disclaimers like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but, because it tells them exactly where your confidence ends and where their control begins. They don't just listen to your words. They study your hesitation, your tone, your pauses. And the less certain you sound, the more power they feel. So what you have to do is trade the performance of niceness for the practice of clarity. This isn't about tone. It's about being rooted. It's about letting your words match your boundaries without leaving the back door open for negotiation. Let me give you an example. You might say, if you're not too busy, I was kind of hoping we could maybe talk later, but no worries if not. Or you could say, I'd like to talk this evening. Let me know what time works. Feel the difference. One is trying not to disturb. The other is simply stating a need. That's clarity. And when you're dealing with someone manipulative, clarity is your best protection. You make it short, direct, calm, airtight. You don't overshare. You don't overjustify. You don't explain your boundary like you're on trial, because every extra sentence you add is another thread they can pull. So tighten it up. No more. I know this sounds crazy, but no more. I'm sorry, I just feel like you don't need to soften your truth. You need to stand in it. And yes, it'll feel strange at first, especially if you're used to being agreeable. You might worry you're being rude or cold. You're not. You're just finally being heard, because the people who only liked you when you were overly accommodating were never listening to you. They were managing you. When you stop performing, they might lose interest. That's not a loss. That's clarity. And I want you to remember this: clear communication doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be forceful. It just has to be steady. You don't need to match their energy. You just need to stop diluting yours. Say what you mean and stop chasing understanding from people who benefit from your confusion. Now let's go even deeper, because this next shift is the one that protects your peace more than any perfect phrase ever could. It's called emotional detachment, or what some call the gray rock method. It's exactly what it sounds like. You become like a gray rock. Unshiny, unreactive, unbothered. You don't shimmer. You don't dance when they poke you. You stop giving them the spark they crave. Because here's the truth: narcissists don't just want attention. They want a reaction. That's their fuel. If they can make you angry, if they can make you explain, if they can make you spin in circles, they feel powerful. They don't win because they're right. They win because you engage. So how do you stop that? You go gray. You go calm. You go quiet. When they insult you, you don't defend. When they guilt trip, you don't explain. When they accuse, you don't perform. You stay steady, boring, neutral. And that's not weakness. That's strategy. You're not rolling over. You're stepping out. You're saying, I'm no longer available for chaos. And yes, when you stop reacting, they might escalate at first. They'll try harder to provoke you. That's okay. That's a sign the pattern's breaking. Stay consistent. Let the storm pass. They'll spin. You'll stay grounded. Because silence isn't surrender. It's wisdom. It's you choosing peace over performance. It's you saying, my emotions are not public property anymore. Now, you've recognized the dynamic. You've practiced clarity. You've detached emotionally. There's one final step that ties it all together. It'll wrap everything powerfully. This is the part that takes real courage, because setting a boundary is one thing. Holding it. When someone pushes, tests, or mocks it, that's where you find out who you really are. Anyone can draw a line, but keeping that line when it's challenged, that's what separates people who value peace from people who just talk about it. A narcissist doesn't respect your boundary just because you set it. They respect it when they realize it's not negotiable. So expect pushback. Expect the sighs, the guilt trips, the wow, you've really changed. Of course you've changed. That's the point. You're not the version of yourself who let every guilt tactic work anymore. They'll say things like, oh, I guess I just can't talk to you anymore. Or, you're so cold now. That's manipulation dressed as disappointment. Don't take the bait. A boundary isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's the moment you decide yourself respect matters more than their approval. Because that's what this is really about: approval. For years, you might have been chasing it without even realizing. You kept being nice because you wanted to be seen as good, loving, patient, forgiving. You wanted them to finally look at you and say, you're right. I see what I did. I'm sorry. But you know what? That moment rarely comes. Not because you're unworthy of it, but because they're not capable of giving it. And the second you stop needing their validation, the second you stop waiting for closure, you become free. That's what boundaries really do. They don't just protect you, they liberate you. When you set a boundary, you're not punishing someone. You're protecting your peace. You're saying, I'm done arguing about my worth. You're not asking for their permission to be respected. You're expecting it. And if they can't meet you there, that's not your problem anymore. Now, here's where people struggle guilt, because when you finally start putting yourself first, it feels wrong. You've spent so long being the fixer, the helper, the one who smooths everything out. So when you start saying no, when you start walking away, that old programming kicks in. You feel selfish, but you're not selfish, you're self-respecting. And there's a difference. Selfishness says, only I matter. Self-respect says, I matter too. If you don't include yourself in the equation, the math of your relationships will always leave you empty. So let the guilt come. And let it go. You've earned the right to feel safe in your own peace. You don't have to justify your boundaries to people who never honored them. You don't have to explain your silence to someone who only listened to themselves. You don't owe closure to someone who wasn't open when it mattered. That's not bitterness, that's balance. And if you're afraid they'll call you cold, distant, difficult, let them. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always be offended by your presence of them. You're not changing to spite anyone. You're changing because you're tired of the chaos. You're choosing calm. You're choosing you. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. Now, here's the last thing. The part that ties all of this together, once you've stepped out of the pattern, don't go back to prove you're healed. You don't have to re-enter toxic conversations just to show how calm you've become. Peace isn't proven in proximity. It's proven in restraint. You can forgive someone and still never invite them back into your life. You can love people and still say, this is as close as you get to me, because forgiveness is internal. Boundaries are external. And healing means learning to do both. So let me leave you with this. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be mean to be strong. You just have to be clear. Your calm isn't weakness. It's control. You're not the person who bends just to keep the peace anymore. You're the person who is the peace. And when you carry that kind of calm, the manipulator loses interest, the noise fades, and you finally realize you never needed to win the argument. You just needed to stop playing their game.